All right, y'all. So I'm gonna do a deep dive on that Proverbs 31, right? So Proverbs 31 verse 1. That's King Lemuel's mom, right? She establishing herself. She establishing a relationship. So she's saying, what should I say? Oh, my son, then son of my womb, son of my vows. She's saying I carried you. She said, I owe something to you, because a vow is kind of not necessarily a contractual thing, but a vow is something you make and you promise to do a certain thing, right? So she telling her son, or she establishing a relationship, right? She like, listen to what I'm telling you, you know what I'm saying? Because this is who I am. Okay, so in verse 2, she telling them, don't spend your strength on women or your vigor on those who ruin kings. She telling them, don't be out here, basically spreading your seed everywhere, having all these kids, running through women, not really building a relationship with them, because she know that one woman, if you got the right woman, she gonna prop you up. She gonna, she gonna be what you supposed to be, or she gonna provide that stable home life for you to go out into the world and do the things you need to do out in the world. That's when you got that one good woman, right? But if you treat that woman wrong, and she gonna make life rough for you. You know what I'm saying? It's gonna be hard. You're gonna have strife in your home. Your kids ain't gonna listen to you. All kind of stuff. Your house is gonna seem like it's falling apart all the time. And that's if you going out here getting multiple women. Now you got kids all over the place. You got kids over here, kids over there. You ain't really raising none of them because you ain't in the house with them. And then you got the women over there. They dealing with other men. They bring other men in the house around your kids. And if you care about anything, you care about what's going on with your children in the house with these other men. These stepdaddies and all the other stuff. Not saying stepdaddies is bad, but I'm talking about if you a man and you done had children with a woman, is especially, young kid, it's a possibility that stuff like that can happen. Now, it's, I know some excellent stepdaddies, so I ain't talking about that, but I'm saying as a man who done conceived children, you want to be in the house with your kids. But if you ain't the right type of man, if you ain't doing the right thing, in your life, if you ain't following God, then it's gonna be kind of hard to stay in your house, because your woman is like she's like a sounding board. Your woman is like a direct, she's like a direct reflection of the things that you doing behind closed doors, the things that everybody else can't see. So sometimes y'all know we see men, we be like, oh, he do this, he work hard, he pay the bills, he do all this, he do whatever he's supposed to do. It look like that on the outside, but on behind closed doors, that man might be, who knows what he might be involved in. And his house ain't gonna necessarily be, it ain't gonna be peaceful. He's just gonna have stuff going on all the time. Okay, so verse 3, it's not for kings, O Lemuel. It is not for kings to drink wine or for rulers to crave strong drink. Now, if y'all know anything about kings and rulers, they basically set the law of the land. People come to the king or they come to the ruler for justice. They feel like they done been done wrong by their neighbor or this person over here. And I'm talking about, back in the day, back in the time when, the Bible was written and we had, kings and rulers over certain provinces and areas and all the other type of stuff. So they came to the king, and the king would basically, dispense justice. He would say, okay, you owe this person X amount, you kill his cow or whatever else, or your cow got killed over there on his property, you owe him this, or, somebody touched one of somebody's kids and they say, okay, we're going to cut your hand off. You won't touch nobody else's kids. Just stuff like that. They came to the king, and the king made them type of decisions, right? So say if the king then set down these laws, right? The king is supposed to be God's representative on earth. The king's that's why he's supposed to be a righteous person, because he's supposed to be able to hear what God telling him. Now, he got to be sober-minded, and it's other verses about that. He's supposed to be sober-minded. He's supposed to know or be aware of all the rules and all the guidelines that God had passed down to him. And he's supposed to be walking, he's supposed to be walking in God's favor. So he know what's going on. He know when God, he know his discernment is telling him one thing or the other, and he can trust that it ain't that he ain't hearing stuff from a hangover, or he ain't hearing stuff from the party last week when he drunk all his liquor and now he tore up, You know, now he hazy, he fuzzy and stuff, and somebody coming to him with something, he got to make a judgment on something, but he don't halfway know. You know, he don't halfway know what's going on. He just, you know, doing stuff off the spur of the moment because, you know, he be drunk up half the time. So, and it ain't for rulers to crave strong drinks. So that's basically like alcoholism. Like you craving it, you know what I'm saying? You got to have it. So once you get to the point to where you've been drinking so much, you know, as a king or as a ruler, where, you know, you can't go a day or two, or, you know, every party y'all have, you getting towed up. That's not for you. If you a king or you're a ruler, you're dealing with, you operating in God's energy, and, you know, God got you dispensing justice. He got you ruling over his people. You can't partake. You know, the people might partake because they don't have the same responsibility that you have. They don't have the position that you have. So you got to decide whether you want to be with the people, and, you know, I guess they struggles and all the other stuff they got going on, or do you want to go ahead and accept their responsibility and be the ruler and you know what I'm saying, serve God, walking in God's favor? Because your job, when you serving God, you're supposed to take care of his people. So that was verse 4. Verse 5. Okay, so verse 5. Lest they drink and forget what is decreed, depriving all oppressed of justice. And that's just what I just covered that. You get drunk, you're gonna forget what was decreed, you're gonna forget the rules and the laws and all the other stuff, and the poor people, not necessarily the poor, but they oppressed. Whatever they oppressed by, you ain't gonna be able to dispense justice. You ain't gonna be able to help them people. Okay, so it says, give strong drink to the one who is perishing, and wine to the bitter in soul. So perishing could mean, like, you know, physically, you know, you dying physically, dying mentally. I think I more see somebody that's dying spiritually. You know, they spiritually dead. You know, they down. And wine to the bitter in soul. You know, that's people who grieving. You know, they can't really handle their grief. Whatever ain't going right in their life. You know, it could be somebody got a spouse that's cheating. Somebody got some kids that's behaving a certain way and they don't approve of it, and it's just causing them all kind of, you know, pain and anguish or whatever. They can't even go to sleep. So they need to drink, you know, get hazy so they can go to sleep. It could be somebody with a job, and their job just making them bitter because they don't want to be in there. They don't want to be listening to other people. They don't want to have a boss, but they haven't aligned themselves with God. So it's just like, either you're going to be a king, either you're going to be royalty, or you're going to be over here. You know what I'm saying? Either you're going to rule or you're going to get ruled. That's just pretty much the basis of it. And it all started in your home. It all started with, you know, you laying down guidelines and stuff in your home. Things need to go a certain way. And it ain't like you ruling with an iron fist or nothing like that. You more or less leading by your example. You this type of way. You doing this, and everybody behind you got to follow suit because you following Christ. You following Christ. You getting your decree from God. God telling you, look, if you're gonna be over this household that I done gave you, you can't be this type of man. You can't be out here doing this. You can't be out here getting drunk and, you know what I'm saying, smoking with your wife and everybody else, and drinking and you know, watching porn behind closed doors and just doing whatever you want to do. You can't rule a godly household like that. Okay. So let him drink and forget his poverty and remember his misery no more. Just like I said, you do things like that, you know, you do things, I'm going to say, take you out of your sober mind, just let you forget. You know, basically what it is it's kind of like what they say, shirking responsibility. Like, you know, when you a certain type of way, you don't have to like really look at the world for what it is. You don't have to try to sit down and figure out how you get out of a certain situation, or how you help other people get out of certain situations. You don't have to take responsibility for nothing if you keeping yourself hazy. So that's just like what I said. You either gonna rule or you gonna get ruled. You gonna accept responsibility, or if you allow somebody else to accept responsibility for you, that's basically like you still in a child place. So Men, we grow up doing little things, when we young, we in our teens and stuff. But then when you get to a certain age, you got to start accepting real responsibility. So it's like either you gonna turn that corner and start accepting that responsibility, or you gonna still behave and move and do the things that you did when you was a child. Okay, so open your mouth for those with no voice, for the cause of all the dispossessed. Now, dispossessed, that's one of them words I don't necessarily know the whole meaning to, but I'm just listening to how it sounds. It's saying you're supposed to open your mouth. You're supposed to speak for people. You're supposed to step up. You're supposed to be a voice for the poor, the people who ain't got no justice. And you can't do stuff like that. You can't speak up for nobody when you doing things that's taking you out of God's good graces, and you can't hear God. Because when you that type of person and you standing up, you trying to do stuff, that's just like when you see the politicians. The first thing they do when somebody say they gonna step up and they gonna run for office and they gonna do this, they gonna be the voice of the people. What do the opponents and everybody else do? They start digging back into people's past, right? They start trying to find dirt on them. Because they're trying to prove to everybody else, like, this person, they not fit to rule. They not fit to stand up and represent y'all. Which, I mean, I don't agree with it. That's why I don't be involved in politics and all that other stuff. So the thing is, everybody got a past, right? Everybody got a past. Everybody got stuff they done did. But once you stop being that person, and once you start walking in, you start walking in God's grace and, his favor and everything like that, then you start, you can get to the point where you say, okay, that's my past. I did, X, Y, Z, whatever, but what I'm doing right now today, or what did I do today? I guess going back and say, what did I do yesterday? Who am I, the person I am right now? And then, you keep on with your, your campaign or whatever. You say you want to be the mayor or the council person, whatever it is. Okay, so open your mouth, judge righteously, and defend the cause of the poor and the needy. That's just what I said. When you're a king, you're a ruler, you're supposed to protect the people. You're supposed to protect God's people, whether they're poor, whether they disabled, no matter what's going on with them. If God done gave you a mind and he done gave you your health and your strength, you're supposed to be using everything God gave you, your mind, your health and your strength, your finances, whatever it is. You're supposed to be using that to speak up for his people. You're supposed to be taking care of God's people. We got enough people out here that's rich, and it's other people that's still down bad and they poor and sleeping on the street and all the other type of stuff. We got enough, we got enough billionaires and millionaires and all the other stuff. If it's that many billionaires and millionaires in the world, you got to ask yourself, why we still got poor people? Why they not taking care of these people? You know what I'm saying? Like, you can build buildings and you can open up the doors and say, okay, everybody got an apartment in this building. I'm gonna take care of you, whatever else. Not saying that it's gonna be that smooth and that easy, but these are things that can happen and should happen, because we got all these, like I say, billionaires and millionaires, these wealthy, rich people. But are they kings and are they rulers? If they is kings and rulers, then who they serve? Who is they kings and rulers for? So you gotta check that type of stuff out. But y'all, that's it. I just wanted to do a little deep dive on it. And it's more to it in here in Proverbs 31 than this. But that's just something I just wanted to start. Because this stuff I think about every day. This stuff that be on my heart every day, because I be trying to keep myself in God's grace or whatever. So this type of stuff be on my mind all the time. But all right, y'all. Y'all be good. Be blessed. Peace.